and I saw it was on vinyl. I went ahead and got it. Oh, 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 oh.
Hey nerd, welcome to Thursday Collection Connection, where we're playing that game. It's just an excuse to talk about records. Play the game with my brother, Plastic Eric, from the Plastic Soundwave Cult, and you can follow along and play along with us by subscribing to both channels. In Eric's last video, he talked about Creedence Clearwater Revival's Chronicle, which I actually own. You may be surprised to find out that I actually own that. Now, if you're wondering if I own that solely because of An American Werewolf in London, you got it in one. I love Bad Moon Rising, but they were overall a great singles band. Creedence had Down on the Corner and Fortunate Son, which Eric talked about last week. And gosh, a bunch of them. Looking Out My Back Door. And yeah, they were a great singles band. And whether they were a great album band, I have no idea. I've never really heard any of the deep tracks, and I felt like that their best of was probably enough for me. And apparently a lot of people felt that way, which we will get to in a moment. I tried for 2 days to come up with a connection to this record. And my first thought was that it's listed in my library as Chronicles Volume 1. And I thought, ooh, I could do one of those albums that released a Volume 1 and never came out with a Volume 2, like The Story of the Clash, Volume 1, or George Michael's Listen Without Prejudice, Volume 1. And we'll stick a pin in that one. But not only did they eventually come out with a Volume 2 sometime in the mid-'80s, most of the versions, including the one that I have, just call it Chronicle their 20 Greatest Hits. And so I'm not sure where the Volume 1 came from, if it only came retroactively after Volume 2 was released. So even though every listing I'm looking for it online listed as Chronicle Volume 1, it doesn't actually seem to be the case. I thought about an album that had 2 songs with rain, referring to rain in the titles, which this one has. Have you ever seen The Rain and Who'll Stop the Rain? Am I thinking that right? I am thinking that right. Who'll Stop the Rain? But the only other album I have that fits that criteria is Counting Crows, August and Everything After, with its Raining in Baltimore and King of Rain? The Rain King. Getting mixed up with King of Pain. The Rain King, which Eric already talked about in one of our early episodes. So that was out. I looked at the label. I didn't have anything else that was on the label. I thought about the fact that the word Chronicle is written in sort of the U.S. money font, and tried to find anything else I might have had that had that money font on it, but came up empty. And I hit it from a dozen more angles and was just having a hell of a time. It was a real stumper for me. I looked at other compilations, best of compilations that had 20 songs on it, and I did come up with one that I have, but that was Frank Sinatra's The Very Good Years. I didn't really feel like talking about Frank Sinatra. So in a fit last night, I took a look at the sales totals. I did read about them being the number one, like the all-time best-selling American 4-piece band, which is a couple of caveats for sure, but does indicate just how successful they were, Creedence. And it is surprising. I think one forgets about that because their discography is so condensed. 5 of their albums came out in a 2-year span between 1969 and 1970. And so even though it was like 8 albums overall, it was just such a concentrated time period that it's easy to forget just how successful they were. But like me, a lot of people seem to decide once in 1976, I think the Best Of came out, that pretty much satisfied their needs. Because even though just about all their records sold millions of copies, some significant millions of copies, 4, 5, 6, 7 million copies, their best-selling record, far and away, is Chronicle, and that has been certified with sales of 10 million. And so the best I could do was find another album that I owned that was certified with sales of 10 million. And what I came up with was not George Michael's Listen Without Prejudice, but George Michael's Faith from 1987. Now, this was an early CD that I bought, and this is actually the early CDs because I have it twice. I did buy a remaster of it, and I'm annoyed. I would have held up just the remaster, but I'm annoyed that they changed the cover. They took all the words off of it, I guess. Once you've had kind of a ubiquitous 10 million selling album, you don't feel the need to put your name on it anymore. But I had initially bought the cassette single for I Want Your Sex, which was a kind of a maxi single in that it had all three variations on I Want Your Sex from the album, plus the track Hard Day. And I liked them all. I listened to it quite a lot. And then with Faith, I don't know if I have this right, this is how it is in my memory, is that Faith came out after I Want Your Sex. I think I Want Your Sex was sort of the big declarative, I'm a big boy now song, you know, sort of the movie equivalent of a child actress getting naked in a movie to distance themselves from any sort of notion of them as a child. I feel like that's what I Want Your Sex was, because George Michael and Wham were never taken all that seriously. They were big from the beginning in the UK. I don't think necessarily in the US, but we were in the UK when Wham hit, and from their first single, they were chart toppers, and they were silly, and they projected this weird Hawaiian shirt, tough guy, soft boy image thing that was just impossible really to take seriously. But they had the tunes stuck in your head. Even the ones that you didn't like were earworms. And so Wham was big all along. In England, I never bought any Wham, but after the transgressive purchase of I Want Your Sex on a single, which for a 15-year-old felt, you know, just over a line, you know, of respectability that had some kind of cool and cachet to it. I really dug Faith, the song, and ended up buying the album not too long thereafter, probably sometime in 1988. After my first 3 discs, I lose track of what I got when, but I think very early on I had George Michael's Faith on CD. And it's almost a begrudgingly fantastic record. I don't love every song. I do think Father Figure, and I thought Father Figure at the time, was really kind of cringy. That it was, again, sort of performative in that purposely transgressive way, but didn't work the way that I Want Your Sex did. But I thought Monkey was a great pop song. One More Time was fine as a ballad. I didn't necessarily love it, but I really liked Hard Day, which was the other B-side, one of the few, I think 7 of these. How many tracks are on here? 11 songs. I think 7 of them were released as singles. So this album was huge, and most of those were hits. I think Hard Day was the only one that didn't really chart, and I don't know if it was released everywhere, but maybe people had had their fill of it by that time. And while I think George Michael's high water mark is probably the single from Listen Without Prejudice, Freedom, 90, that really to me is just a high point of that album. Whereas this is a pretty good album throughout. Even the lonely couple that didn't get released as single. I mean, Hand to Mouth is a good song, and it might even be. Look, now I'm looking at these. I did this so last second. I didn't really even have time to. So I think maybe the original album only had 10 songs. So the fact that 7 out of 10 were released as singles is nutty. This one, the initial CD apparently did have a bonus track as they were trying to, and it had a remix of Hard Day on it. But that was in the remaster that I have, a 2-disc remaster. That one gets bumped to the bonus disc, to disc 2. But I did like it enough that I bought it. I bought a remaster of it. I think Faith is probably the enduring song from it, the title track. You never really hear I Want Your Sex anymore. But it's still a great, fun song. And very squishy in its sonics. It sounds like an emission. But yeah, so I listened to it, gave it a pass this morning, and almost begrudgingly. He was still kind of hard to take serious, but you can't deny it was a monster hit, and the dude could write a song, and could perform a song, and could win you over, because it's basically silly. But anyway, that is my scrambling at the last second connection that I came up with. 10 million seller, CCR's Chronicle, and George Michael's Faith album. And that is in the US, if I didn't clarify that. But you can look for Eric's response to this video on Monday on the Plastic Soundwave Cult. And he has the weekend, as do you, to cue up Faith, maybe for the first time in a long time. And bask in its legacy. And so yeah, if you made it to the end, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.